For my final project, I decided to focus on something that is very interesting to me. I decided to do my project on product placement, and I compared the TV shows How I Met Your Mother and Friends. So before I get into my research findings, I wanted to give you a background of product placement and its occurrence in the media. To begin, product placement is defined as an advertising technique used by companies to subtly promote their products through a non-traditional advertising technique, usually through appearances in film, television, or other media. Its first appearance was in Around the World in 80 Days by Jules Verne in 1873. The book mentioned many shipping companies that were embedded into the story. There were also product placement in paintings. This painting, shown here by Eduardo Manet, has labeled bottles in the picture, but it is still not sure if he was paid to put them in or just used them to put things into context and bring the picture more to life. Whatever the reason, though, he could have influenced people to purchase this brand through representing it in his painting. One of the most iconic brand placements in a modern movie is in Castaway. In this movie, FedEx and the ball brand Wilson are portrayed through the entire movie. If you asked anyone to state two brands after watching that movie, I have no doubt that they would remember. How can you not remember his best friend Wilson? When I was researching about product placement, I came across two types of product placement: basic and advanced. Basic was described as when the logo of an object or a brand is visible, but the characters don't draw attention to the brand. For example, this is seen a lot in Friends. Monica and Joey's kitchen are often displayed as more of a background, but you can still see the logo of the items or the familiar coloring or the shape of the product, so you can pick out the brand because we are all so familiar with it. For example, a lot of times in the background you will see Berea noodles, Bernoulli sauce, Sun-Maid raisins, the occasional ocean spray bottle. It just depends on what they're eating. Oreo cereal back in the day. So advanced product placement is when the product or brand is mentioned by name by characters in the show or movie. In Friends, there's an entire episode that focuses around Pottery Barn. They say the name, they go to the store, they purchase things off of it, and the entire episode is about Pottery Barn. So this would be an example of an advanced product placement. Now let's get into the primary research I did for this project. I chose 4 episodes from each TV show, and the episodes are listed right there. I tried to choose from a variety of seasons, but there were major product placements in some episodes in Friends that I couldn't ignore, such as the giant Toblerone bar or the Pottery Barn episode. I then watched each episode a couple of times and wrote down every single product placement item I could see or hear. I just wrote down the brand under each episode, and that's how I kept track of things. I then went through and looked at all of the things I had written down and made categories based off of the top products. I made the following categories. I made food and drink, clothing, electronics, and other. And in the other category, that included things such as board games, sports teams, dish soaps, etc. Just kind of the things that didn't fit into the other categories. I came up with the following graphs. In all 4 episodes, How I Met Your Mother had 15 products and Friends had 36. Just to preface, there could have been some that I potentially missed, but this is research I got after watching and recording the multiple products multiple times to make sure that I could see everything that I possibly could. As you can see, just from the number of products, Friends has a lot more than How I Met Your Mother. The highest percentage of product mentions or visibility for How I Met Your Mother was electronics. Electronic items were placed or mentioned 46.7%, so 7 out of the 15, while the product placement in Friends was primarily focused on food and drink at about 72.2% of the mentioned products, which was 26 out of the 36. Product placement relates to the landscape model and consumer socialization. The landscape model was developed by Jan and Roskos Ewaldson. Sorry if I botched that. This model basically states that as people watch movies, they survey the landscape to comprehend the plot. Direct involvement of the products in the plot can trigger explicit memories, while those just in the background or not in focus can trigger implicit memories. Explicit memory is basically making a conscious effort to remember, while implicit memory is acquired and used unconsciously. This applies to product placement because even if you are unaware that you're doing it, you look at the background of the scene to gain information and to gain context. When you see those things in the background and they help you gain that context, you kind of remember those products, which is great for advertisers. Consumer socialization is based on the cognitive development model and social learning model. It states children learn from observation, so by viewing advertisements and lifestyles from a television show, they will develop their consumer behavior as well as learning consumer role perception. This relates a lot to product placement. Since people nowadays are skipping commercials, it's becoming more vital for brands to advertise through TV shows or movies. Children and even adults will see the products and shows, and by seeing those, it can influence their consumer behaviors. I wanted to show you some examples of product placement I found in Friends and How I Met Your Mother. In this screenshot, you can see Ted from How I Met Your Mother on his Windows computer, and he is searching items on Bing. This is a more obvious product placement because you can see the product and it is tied into the actions of the character, so it's a little more advanced than basic. This next one is of Joey. This is a more casual yet obvious product placement. You can clearly see the Fox Racing shirt he is wearing, but it isn't the focal part of the action and they're not directly talking about it in the episode if you were to watch it. The next picture is interesting because they went in and digitally added the product logo after they had already filmed the scene. This has become super popular as technology has arisen, and by digitally adding it in after the production, it can increase the amount of money you can make. The last picture is from Friends, and it shows Joey holding a KFC bucket, and you can see half of Colonel's face, but it isn't obvious what it is. Yeah, we all know what it is at the same time. It has the right coloring, the right shape, and just enough of the brand's logo that everyone knows what it is. In conclusion, I've noticed that product placement in How I Met Your Mother is less frequent, but they tend to have more obvious and advanced placements. And Friends typically has a more basic approach and includes things in the background a lot more. But there is the occasional episode that is advanced placement and that is strictly just about the product, such as the episode about Pottery Barn or the giant candy bar Toblerone. Back in the day, there were a lot more product placements of food and drink, and they were a lot more casual than they are today. Today, we live in such a tech world that most of the products being placed in our TV shows and movies are predominantly technological services or electronics. The landscape model teaches us that what we see in the background or what is tied into the show through the characters will either trigger our explicit or implicit memory. And consumer socialization helps us to understand that the products we see in those TV shows and movies can influence our consumer behaviors. Overall, I predict that product placement is only on the rise and that it will continue to be integrated in our TV shows. And hopefully it'll start getting integrated a little better because it's interesting to see how clever they can get when integrating products. And it will influence people as they see it, and so I can see it as a potential advertising for future businesses.